I was at the hair salon when I got the text from my daughter Victoria saying she was getting married. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't an in-person conversation. It was a short, almost formal message, as if she were notifying a distant acquaintance. I felt something strange in that moment, a bad feeling I couldn't quite explain. I responded with heart emojis, said I was happy for her, asked for details. She was polite, but evasive. Said everything was being organized, that she'd tell me more soon. Weeks went by, and nothing. I tried to bring up the subject, but Victoria always changed the conversation, or said she was rushing around with the preparations. I started to realize something was wrong when my sister called, asking if I'd already chosen my dress for the wedding. I was confused. What dress? Victoria hadn't told me anything about dates, much less about outfits. That's when it started to sink in. My daughter was leaving me out. I confronted her by text, tried to call, but she said she was too busy and that we'd talk later. That later never came. I found out the details of my only daughter's wedding through social media. I saw photos of the dress she chose, the catering, the decorated venue. Everything beautiful, everything expensive, everything planned down to the smallest detail. And me? I was nowhere in any of it. I wasn't asked to help with anything. It was as if I didn't exist. The pain I felt was deep, the kind that settles in slowly and takes you over completely. I cried a lot during those days. I asked myself what I had done wrong, where I had failed as a mother. I raised Victoria alone after her father abandoned us. I worked 2 jobs for years to give her a good education, clothes, outings, everything a child deserves. She never went without. She was always my absolute priority. Then came the invitation. But it wasn't handed to me. It was left in the mailbox, inside a plain envelope, with no affection whatsoever. When I opened it, I saw it was for the ceremony only. There was no invitation to the reception, just to the church. I stood there holding that paper, feeling like this wasn't real. My daughter was inviting me to watch her get married, but didn't want my presence at the celebration. I called her immediately, my voice choked up, asking for an explanation. Victoria sighed on the other end of the line, as if she were tired of me. And then she said it. Said the wedding would be an elegant, sophisticated event, that there would be professional photos, videos, that everything needed to be perfect. And I, according to her, didn't fit the aesthetic of the event. I asked what she meant by that. She went quiet, but then let it out. "Mom, you know how you are. You're overweight. People will notice. I don't want my wedding to become the subject of comments and jokes." I fell silent. I couldn't respond at all. My own daughter was telling me I was a problem, that my body was a source of shame, that I wasn't good enough to be by her side on the most important day of her life. I hung up without saying anything more. I sat on the couch for hours, staring at nothing, trying to process it all. Her words echoed in my head nonstop. "You're overweight. People will notice." I hadn't just been excluded. I had been rejected. For being who I am. For having the body I have. I remembered all the sacrifices I made for her. The weekends I gave up resting to take her to friends' birthday parties or outings. The money I saved to pay for her college, while I myself wore old, patched clothes. All of this, so that now she could tell me I wasn't fit to be in her wedding photos. I thought about not going. I thought about just disappearing, letting her have the perfect wedding without the imperfect mother getting in the way. But then came the call. Victoria was excited, different, said she urgently needed to talk to me about the honeymoon. She and the groom had chosen an incredible destination, a dream trip to Europe, but the package was over their budget, and she remembered that I had promised to help financially with whatever they needed. A promise I actually made, months before, when I still thought I'd be included in the preparations, when I still believed my daughter loved me unconditionally. Victoria talked about 5-star hotels, tours, fancy restaurants. She spoke with such excitement she seemed like a child asking for a new toy. And then came the direct question. "Mom, you're going to transfer the money this week, right? I need to confirm the reservation. My daughter was ashamed of me, didn't want me around, but my money was welcome. My sweat, my work, my savings, all of that was useful, just not me. I asked her if she was sure I should pay for that trip. She laughed, thought it was a joke. Of course, Mom, you promised. And I had always kept my promises. I had always been there for her. But for the first time in my life, I felt I didn't owe anything anymore. That I had the right to think about myself, to respect myself, to not accept crumbs of affection in exchange for money. I told her I needed to think, that we'd talk later. She got irritated, said she didn't have time for stalling, that she needed an answer immediately. I hung up on her. And I disconnected much more than just the phone that day. I spent the whole night thinking. I looked at my life, at everything I'd built, at everything I'd given up. I worked as a housekeeper for 15 years. I cleaned houses for people who barely looked at my face. I scrubbed toilets, ironed clothes, carried weight until my back hurt. All for her. All so Victoria could have opportunities I never had, so she could study, graduate, get a good job. And she did. My daughter makes good money today, has a comfortable life, lives in a nice apartment, but somewhere along that journey, she forgot where she came from, forgot who paid the price for her to get there. And worse, she started being ashamed of that origin. Ashamed of me. I remembered when she was little and called me her queen, said I was the most beautiful mother in the world, hugged me so tight I could feel all her love. Where did that little girl go? Where did the respect, the gratitude, the real love go? The next morning, I made my decision. I called the travel agency and canceled the honeymoon package I had reserved on my credit card. Canceled everything: hotels, flights, tours. The attendant asked if there was a problem, and I said yes, there was. A big problem, but it was being resolved now. With the money that would have been spent on that trip, I did something I'd never done in my life. I booked a week for myself at a seaside inn, a simple but cozy place where I could finally rest, where I could look at the horizon and breathe without feeling the weight of decades of sacrifice. I bought new clothes, a pretty swimsuit, a book I'd always wanted to read. I planned every detail of that week as if it were my own honeymoon. With myself. With the woman I was, and who deserved to be celebrated. Victoria called the next day. She was desperate. The agency had informed her about the cancellation. She was screaming on the other end of the line, demanding explanations, accusing me of sabotaging her happiness. I let her talk. I let her pour out all the anger, all the frustration. When she finished, I said calmly that I wouldn't pay for the trip, that she and the groom would have to find another way to cover the honeymoon. She asked if I was crazy, said I couldn't do that to her. I replied that she had done much worse to me, that she had excluded me from her own wedding out of shame about my body, that she had treated me like someone disposable, and that I wouldn't accept being treated that way anymore. Not by her, not by anyone. Victoria was silent for a few seconds. Then she started crying, apologizing, saying it wasn't quite like that I was exaggerating. But I knew my daughter. I knew when she was being sincere and when she was just trying to get what she wanted. I hung up and went to pack my suitcase. The calls started, one after another. Victoria wouldn't stop trying to reach me. Messages, long voice notes, everything trying to convince me to change my mind. Relatives started calling me too, saying I was being extreme, that I was hurting my daughter at such an important moment. But no one asked how I felt being excluded, what it was like to receive an invitation only to the ceremony, what it was like to hear that my body was a problem. No one cared about my pain. They only cared about what I could offer. I arrived at the inn on a sunny afternoon. The sea was beautiful, the breeze was pleasant, and for the first time in a long time, I felt light. I left my phone off. I didn't want to know about problems, demands, guilt. I just wanted to exist without having to justify my existence. I spent those days walking on the beach, feeling the sand under my feet, diving in the ocean. I talked with other guests, laughed, ate delicious things without worrying about what others would think. I realized I had spent years shrinking myself, diminishing myself, apologizing for taking up space. And why? So people wouldn't be bothered by me? So my own daughter wouldn't feel ashamed? I was a hard-working, honest woman who raised a daughter alone and did the best she could. My body carried the marks of that journey, and there was nothing wrong with that. When I turned my phone back on, I had 87 missed calls, almost all from Victoria. I read some messages. She said the wedding was ruined, that guests were asking about me, that she didn't know what to answer. Said she loved me, that she had messed up, that she wanted to talk. But I knew those words only existed because she needed me now, not because she really felt them. I responded with a simple message. Said I was enjoying my days at the beach, that I was fine, and that when I got back we could talk calmly, if she really wanted to, not with the intention of getting money or favors, but to rebuild what had been broken. The wedding happened without me. I saw some photos later on social media. Everything was indeed beautiful, perfect, exactly how Victoria wanted it. But I didn't feel like being there. I felt pity, actually. Pity for a daughter who chose appearances over real love, who preferred to please people who don't even matter instead of honoring the one who had been there all along. Today, my relationship with Victoria is different. She apologized for real, cried a lot, said she realized how cruel she had been. We're trying to get closer little by little. But I learned something during those days at the beach, looking at the endless ocean. I learned that self-love isn't selfishness, that setting boundaries isn't meanness, and that no one, absolutely no one, has the right to make us feel less worthy of love because of our appearance, not even our children. That week was my real honeymoon, the most important wedding I ever celebrated, with myself